Hello and welcome to the FPV Freedom Coalition's community meeting. I must apologize right off the bat that I was unable to record the first 5 or 6 minutes of tonight's meeting. The part that you missed was Josh going over the case about James Benson, who was recently convicted of aerial trespass, I believe, in Louisiana. So we'll jump right in here to Josh continuing to talk about that story.
So a couple of notes in this case that is pretty ridiculous on its face is that they didn't allow the flight logs from the Inspire. If you're familiar with DJI, it records everything. It records your flight. It records your telemetry. All this stuff would be able to determine that he was uh, not surveilling. But the judge threw that stuff out. He wasn't able to have his um, expert witness, who was Ryan LaTourette, um, who is in the video with Joshua Bardwell there. From the research that I could see, is that they threw that out because they didn't want to allow him to Skype in. And the court case kind of happened at the beginning of the COVID outbreak, and even beyond that, a plane ticket and all that stuff was expensive for Mr. Benson. So it makes it kind of difficult to have your case heard when you're throwing out all the evidence that would exonerate you. So I'm going to post a link to this. This is Ryan LaTourette's article on this. This was dated back on March 31st. And then you can watch the video up above. It's a pretty bad deal. Beyond this, there's a couple issues at play here. There's um, the FAA has jurisdiction over the airspace, and whether you agree or disagree, whether you feel that states, counties, individual property owners should own their airspace or not, currently the FAA controls all that airspace. So telling somebody that they can't fly somewhere doesn't really work. Now, there comes into play here some privacy laws. And at the and I get that people don't want, there's this big hubbub out there about, people use drones for spying, and those of us in the FPV world, whether you're in the FPV world or not, um, you all know, and I know, that our drones are meant to go fast. They're meant for acrobatics. They're meant to they're not meant for spying. They're loud. They're obnoxious. Most drones are loud and obnoxious. Anybody who would try to use them for spying is stupid to begin with. But the idea is out there amongst the general public is that's what people do with drones. They just spy on people, and that doesn't really work. There's a lot of fear mongering going on with that. But I wanted to highlight this. There may be some issues going forward with the privacy laws in regards to Louisiana, and how that works out. But at the same time, there's a lot going on here that can easily be thrown out. And so, on that note, I do want to post. There is a Gofundme account, and I'll drop that. He is appealing his decision, um, and he's saying he's going to take it all the way up to the Supreme Court if necessary. Um, there's what can happen here is, if this stands, there's a lot of other states that are going to impose similar laws like this, where our ability to fly is going to be severely restricted. Now, again, if you're pro privacy, then that may be the right thing. That may be something for you. If you're pro being able to, for states being able to decide where you can and can't fly, that may be something that you want. Personally, I like to only have to answer to one agency as opposed to a slew of different agencies when deciding I need or want to fly. And being able to do that freely is the best thing for the hobby, in my personal opinion. The fact that we, not only, fined him and possible jail time, and you know all this stuff that happened to this gentleman, but we banned him from owning a drone because he just wanted to fly. That's absolutely ridiculous. Um, so I know I'm kind of going on a harangue here about this.
And
Um,
let me also add a couple of items that are relevant, and one of them Ryan LaTourette brought up. May I say a couple words, Josh?
yeah, go ahead, please.
The one of the things that Ryan brought up in the video of Joshua Bardwell was the Uniform Tort Law. And so there is an organization of attorneys who work pro bono across the United States, and they create laws that are consistent. And these laws are picked up by local municipalities, either county or state legislatures, and it's very useful. For 3 years, they were working on a drone trespassing law, and it was very complicated. And they finally got frustrated in the middle of 2019 and set aside the entire act, the entire effort. So that's one of the references that Ryan made. So hopefully that will not be an issue, and that is certainly something that if that gets picked back up, that could be a path that this type of legislation could be put in place across a lot of states quickly. The other is there's a bill in the Senate by Senator Mike Lee of I want to say Utah, if I'm correct.
Yes,
And
Utah.
thank you. And it's Senate 2607, and this bill is on a local trespass. And so, were this bill to pass both the Senate and the House and be signed by the president, it would make situations like James Benson got arrested and was convicted possible. In essence, you would have to ask permission to fly over any private property or a business's property. So we have been in opposition to Senate 2607. And as we move forward with the variety of memos to congressmen and women, as well as senators, this may be one that we will add to the list. Right now, that piece of legislation has a 3% chance of passing, as identified by government.track, but it may gain momentum if something like the James Benson conviction is seen as precedent setting. And so there are a number of reasons why this is important, not only because this gentleman's rights were trampled, but also the precedent that we see in other states, as well as the possibility of federal law.
Yeah. So oh, sorry. So a couple of things here is that Louisiana isn't the only state with a law like that. I'm gonna drop this. This is from Drone Life. So this one talks about Texas's drone laws. So under current Texas state law, it's illegal to use a drone to capture an image of private property without the owner's consent, unless you are a law enforcement office, a professor doing research, a surveyor, an employee of oil or gas or power company, or someone covered by one of more than a dozen exemptions. So this includes not being able to use a drone to take photos as a journalist or as a property owner using drone photography. So this is becoming really pervasive.
Doesn't
And
Florida have something just like that too?
I'm not sure about Florida. I'll have to research it. But they may have. But I mean, one of the issues that they bring up in this article is a very keen point, is that, I could, as somebody, if let's say I lived in Texas and I was standing on the top floor of a multi-story building, I could take my camera out or my cell phone and I could take a picture of private property and be completely within the law. But if I put my drone in the air, or if I even held my drone and took a picture of that same property, now I'm violating the law. It makes absolutely no sense. So the problem here is that the law, the Texan law, prohibits the use of drones for surveillance, but in proper legislative fashion, doesn't provide a definition of what surveillance actually means. So now you've got this vague law that can be interpreted in 100 different ways, and you can now use that law to say, "Oh, well, he was surveilling my property." Well, no, not really. I was flying a drone. I don't care what your property looks like. I don't care. Sorry, my camera accidentally panned over your property. But at the same time, in Texas, you could be arrested for that. You could be fined for that. You could possibly say you can never own a drone again. That's the kind of stuff. Now, this is being fought by a group of journalists, but it's pretty interesting how just an act of pointing a camera because it's attached to a drone has now become this crazy holy crap moment by everybody, and everybody's losing their mind and fear mongering and all the other crap that's going on. So yeah, so sorry. Here we go. Florida's version. If it'll load for me.
Looks like that one's been there since 2015.
Surveillance by drone. So prohibiting a person, a state agency, or political subdivision from using a drone to capture an image of privately owned real property or of the owner, tenant, occupant, invitee, or licensee of such property with the intent to conduct surveillance without his or her written consent if a reasonable expectation of privacy exists. Authorizing the use of drone by a person or entity engaged in a business profession license. So seems like there's probably a bunch more text along with that. I'll have to give that a read. Maybe we'll talk about it next week.
I have a quick question. So
absolutely.
So if you're flying your drone in one of these states that have these laws about the surveillance, and how are they going to say whether you're recording or not? So if I'm just flying around and the camera's off, I'm not recording though.
Correct.
Can you still get prosecuted for that?
So here's the deal: is that if you're flying FPV, my thought would be that they're saying you're using FPV to enhance the control of the aircraft, which means that you could potentially be conducting surveillance. Now, if you're flying line of sight or you don't have a camera equipped to your drone, then you're fine. But if you've got those goggles down, I think that alone right there is, assuming the police officer testifies that you were flying via FPV, then yeah, that could cause you some problems.
Right.
Now,
they could say it's intent even if you weren't meaning for it.
Exactly. So, even on the flip side, I guess to stay safe, you fly around either people who you have direct permission to fly around their properties, or you fly in public places, so
yeah,
it's pretty interesting.
But don't accidentally catch somebody's private property.
Right.
Right. So.
And that guy was fun. The one you were just talking about, I watched Barwell's video, and he was flying over like 300 feet almost the whole time.
Yeah, and the camera on his drone, I think he had. I'm not super up on DJI tech, but I think it was an X3 camera, and it's positioned directly forward, just like an FPV camera would be. It doesn't tilt or pan or anything like that. So anything that he caught on video was completely accidental, or even just it was caught in relation to him flying the drone.
Right.
So it's getting funky out there. I mean,
it's getting out of hand.
A little bit.
Kind of muddy in the waters slightly here.
Yeah.
Here in Pennsylvania, we do have that surveillance law. I bother to look it up, but I've never heard of anybody ever getting in trouble for that. what I have heard and personally have had to deal with is you mentioned public land. Our parks, our Pennsylvania parks, and in the game areas, state game lands, even when there's no hunting involved, they are heavily patrolled for drones. So the idea is that they're trying to quote like balance popular recreational uses with drone usage. And one of the big arguments that I personally ran into myself is I had a game warden stop me and like try to ask if I had any firearms or archery equipment on me because he was like, "Oh, well, you're flying a drone in this field where nobody gives a shit." But he does because he tried to argue, "Oh, I was looking for bear or something." I said, "Sir, if I see a bear on this drone, I'm bringing it back and I'm getting the hell out of here."
Right. Well, the problem is that, like a lot of tools that hunters can use, a drone is one of them. Now, a lot of states do have laws calling that, unfair advantage or, stuff like that. But, it's similar to a game camera that you can set up out in the field to kind of plan your hunt. And so people have used drones to scout areas and whatnot. And I would assume that a lot of states have laws against that. Again, that might be something I need to dig into, but it makes sense. That I mean, to a certain regard, yeah, absolutely, that makes sense. So, if he's coming up and saying, I just want to make sure that you're not, scouting for game so that you can go and take your game with the use of a drone, it creates an unfair advantage. So there are there are states that I would assume that have laws like that.
Yeah, and he was cool about it, but
Yeah.
the one thing that's frustrating is the DCNR that handles massive areas of Pennsylvania basically restricted drone use to only 6 parks in the entire state. Under their rules, you cannot fly in those other places unless that's ever challenged. And even then, you would have to call it in, which it's kind of surprising. It's like it should have been one or the other. It should have just been, look, you can fly anywhere on DCNR land, but you got to make a phone call first and just say, hey, I'm flying over here. And no,
All
I'm
right.
not hunting for a game or something else, especially in off seasons of game.
All right.
I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to balance, but I just wanted to mention that for people when you're saying go public, check your rules on that if you're thinking of going to parks, because
Yes.
you know.
Yeah. I mean, I for one, and I'll be to Arizona, and Arizona is very unrestrictive when it comes to this stuff. In fact, Arizona, and I know there's a couple other states, and I've mentioned this before on other meetings, but Arizona has a law that says a state law that basically says no city or county can make laws, regulating the use of drones. So they and Arizona pretty much states preemption from the FAA as their guiding principle for drones, with the exception of a couple of things like you don't fly over state penitentiaries and power facilities and yada yada yada. But even more so from that, they have deemed that every city designate a public park where model airplanes and drones can be flown. So pretty cool about Arizona, and I know a couple other states have rules like that as well.
Yeah, I live in New York, and I'm pretty sure it's like that as well.
Yeah. So, any other comments or questions on this issue? Now, a couple of things that I posted the GoFundMe, and you'll hear Ryan talk in the video about how his appellate application cost $12,000. The GoFundMe has reached and surpassed the $12,000. But if he has to pursue it further, then all that he'll need that extra money to keep pursuing that. So even if you can just give $5, $10, $15, if you can spare it, send it his way so that we can push this. We can help him fight this. It's ridiculous. So my personal take now, on a second note, one of the ideas we were kind of tossing around is creating a t-shirt or something like that we could donate the proceeds to James as well. I was kind of curious on anybody's feedback from that. If you feel like that's a good idea, if you got a good idea for a slogan for it, send it our way. We can talk about it right now, or maybe we can mull it around in your head a little bit. We can kind of circle back to it towards the end of the meeting. All right. So next up on the list here of interesting news articles, this one's kind of cool. This comes from Newsweek. So a couple of researchers out of Singapore have created a new type of drone that it's a flapping wing aircraft known as an Ornithopter that can hover, glide, and dive. It can swoop into cluster, or they're calling cluttered environments filled with humans. It can quickly come to a stop. It can coast or basically glide to save energy. Whereas a drone would have to, a quadcopter would have to constantly expend energy to maintain a hover. It can do acrobatics. Pretty interesting little aircraft here. There's a little picture of it down at the bottom. It flaps its wings. It looks like it's got 4 wings and a tail and a rudder on it. I can't see what the propulsion is on it. I'm sure it's got.
Bruce is saying that ornithopters are as old as he and me.
I know. I've heard the term before.
That's true, and it's some of the newer ones are made of some really great materials, lots of carbon fiber rods and brushless motors and small batteries, allowing the wings to flap efficiently.
Absolutely.
More efficiently than in the past. I'm not disputing that they are inefficient.
Yeah. I mean, a couple of they're talking about using them for pollination research, or let's see, obviously military use, reduced noise. They're obviously less noisy than a quadcopter would be. But pretty interesting little aircraft he's got there. Next up is just in a couple of days, 8 days, NASA is launching. Oh, I double posted that. Hold on one sec. All right, let's try that. NASA counts down to the launch of the new Mars rover and the drone. So the new, I think it's called Perseverance, is going to be launching on the 30th, barring any bad weather. But included in this package is a helicopter, a little drone helicopter that they're going to use to fly around Mars and get some aerial shots. So this is going to be pretty cool that the technology that we're involved with on a day-to-day is now going to be on another planet, able to hopefully fly around barring any unforeseen issues. So this will be pretty cool. I'll be watching when that actually lands, and hopefully we get some videos of it flying around on Mars. That would be super cool. All right, Dave, you'll like this one. This is from Engadget. AI drone swarms help. AI helps drone swarms navigate through crowded, unfamiliar spaces. So this is basically using machine learning, and they are segmenting the AI amongst the swarm, so that each individual drone not only guides itself, but helps do the calculations for all the other drones in the swarm to get the swarm into tight places. And this could be awesome for search and rescue, where you can swarm an area with search and rescue drones and use those to get into tight places in cases like a flood or an earthquake, where you're having to go in tight windows or in gaps in rubble, looking for people to get first responders to them as quickly as possible. So I thought this was really cool.
Very cool. Caltech, way to go, Caltech.
Yeah. All right. And last on the list, and I'm sorry, EB Misfit. Did you guys see the dragon drone? It changed shape as it flies. I have not seen that. Do you have a article with that or a picture? That would be cool to see. Cool. I would like to see that. All right. This one's really cool. This comes out obviously from the COVID. This is, I think, let me make sure. What happened here? Oh yeah. All right. Public or Pittsburgh area company develops an electrostatic drone that can disinfect stadiums in 3 hours. So it's using it can fly over the seats, the stadium, and disinfect all those seats, which is pretty cool. I imagine we'll see a lot of stuff like this so that we can move on with the reopening, getting sporting events, concerts, all that fun stuff back into our daily life. But yeah, this is a pretty neat invention coming out of the COVID-19.
Pretty sure in all the examples that they're showing it outside, and the sun probably disinfects it within 3 hours also. But
Yeah,
there are
probably.
other uses there.
Well, if you've got an indoor stadium, I mean, as long as the drone could fly indoors, that would be, which I can imagine it would. There'd be no issue.
And you would need FAA to get all over you if you're inside.
True story.
Yep. Yeah.
Also,
Well,
So
watch out for wind, because if spraying and
drag-
spray right up or all that kind of stuff, you have to watch out for that too.
Mm-hmm.
oh, I'm gonna have to watch that just from the thumbnail. That looks really cool. It's got a little
I know this is completely left field, but I
Oh,
was
go for
literally
it.
just watching Chernobyl again,
Uh-huh.
the show, and they were showing the Hind helicopters dropping boron carbide sand over and over again, and I bet they wish they had shit like this where they could just sit. Just saying.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. That is all I have for the news today. I know again I kind of went on a harangue about Mr. Benson's court case. It's really important to me that anytime something like that comes up, that we kind of gather together as a community and help folks like that out, so that we can kind of stop the spread of stupid laws in regards to our hobby. I mean, I truly believe that this is one of the world's best hobbies. I believe it's great for education. I believe it's great for STEM. It's great for a lot of emerging technologies. And I'm not talking about drone delivery. I'm talking about search and rescue. I'm talking about innovation. I mean, we're putting a drone on Mars for exploration. These are the kind of technologies that starting with the Wright brothers and going on for many decades, that flight has kind of inspired. So yeah, I saw that one too. I didn't want to bring that one up. Of course Dan did. So yeah,
It was
other
XJet's
news.
suggestion.
I'm sure it was. Other news that we're working on. This is Dave. Weekend. One of the young gentlemen on this call, Alex, is working with us on the DAC tasking group on recreational safety culture. And so good for Alex to persevere and track down the people running that tasking group and ask to be invited on. So he's volunteering more of his time to help out the community. I'm also encouraged by the two of the subgroups, the recreational and the small commercial business subgroups under this safety culture that has the remit to evaluate general aviation safety culture and identify what from full scale or general aviation could be utilized and brought over to UAS. And I like the way the recreational group is shaped up, as well as the group I'm leading, which is the small commercial. So this, as I've said, will be presented in the October DAC. I want to say I'm going to mess up the date, so it's late October, third week, I think. But as that firms up, we'll be sure to let everyone know a date. So this will not be an earth-shaking event, but it has significant importance in the sense that there's a lot of dialogue with manned aviation airlines, aeronautical associations, as well as manufacturers on this topic of safety, in as much as safety is so critically important to manned aviation. So good topic, good participation, and I'm encouraged with the ideas. So that's all I had on the update from the DAC.
So what are, just to kind of push you a little further on that, Dave, what are some of the highlights from the safety culture tasking group that you've been able to kind of, influence and get buy-in from some of the other stakeholders there?
One of the things that we're talking about now is that we've been we all agree across all four of these subgroups that trust is critically important, and trust is a two-way street, and that there are a number of two-way relationships, well, FAA and UAS operators, FAA and general public. And in order for the FAA to gain a better level of trust and participation from recreational as well as Part 107 small commercial operators, but most importantly for us in the recreational area, we're putting forward the recommendation that the FAA works harder and gets some results in including some recreational representation, both on the DAC, Drone Advisory Committee of the FAA, as well as structures and organizations like the FAA symposium that they run jointly with AUVSI. If anyone has, Alex here has attended that, and of note is there is very little recreational content in the agendas. In the past, it's been near zero. And another organization that we would ask to have better representation on is the UAST, the UAS Safety Team. It's an organization of 80 companies and institutions. There are one or two organizations representing recreational out of that 78 to 80 organizations. So that I'm encouraged with that. And we've also, to me, one of the most important changes that we've been able to gain agreement on across the board is one size does not fit all, and that the regulations should have proportionality to the risks of the mission. And so with UAS in the United States, small electric UAS still having 0 fatalities, the level of risk is a lot less than a manned aircraft. So consequently, the regulations should be proportionate to the risk. And so we've gained everyone's agreement on that, and everyone is broad representation across the DAC, and this includes many DAC members across these 4 subgroups in the safety culture tasking group. So that to me is a red letter in a positive way, and we'll see what we come out with in detail. Does that provide enough insight, Josh?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate that. All right. So anybody else have anything they want to talk about, bring up? Alex, you got anything going on? Sorry to put you on the spot. Hi, you're talking.
So, I going along with Dave said all that stuff, and then I think another thing was maybe like that I think people agreed on mainly in some of those conversations was also trying to see if the FAA would change the way that they sort of encourage or talk to pilots, instead of maybe like in a more positive tone, instead of like always saying don't do this, maybe get the FAA to say can do for people.
I would agree with that. I would say a lot of the posts that come out on the FAA drone site, Drone Zone Facebook account, if you're not subscribed to it or attached to it, you definitely should be. Sometimes they post some good informational stuff, like when there's a flight restriction or a TFR, a temporary flight restriction due to, it could be presidential action, it could be wildfires, it could be any number of things. But definitely important to have that information, especially if you're in an area where stuff like that crops up a lot. But on the flip side, a lot of the posts that do come out of the FAA drone zone and from their drone team seems very
Negative.
kind of
Oppressive, negative.
yeah,
Yeah.
negative.
Right.
Very much so.
Don't do the following. And so the two examples we cited was, we thought, a very appropriate one, and you mentioned it, was the don't fly around wildfires. Makes complete sense. We agree. We support it. Then they should continue communications in exactly that tone. In contrast, prior to the 4th of July, their recommendation was leave your drone at home, don't fly. And so we thought there were just a myriad of ways they could have spun that in a more positive way and said, take your drone out, fly, enjoy, and fly in these locations. It could have been positive, it could have been upbeat, and that's what we're recommending. So it's
it's just the way that post came across was just like, if you're going to the park for 4th of July, leave the drone at home. Well, no, take your drone, just fly safely, please. It's goofy. So yeah, I definitely like that recommendation. That's good stuff. So in case anybody didn't know, and I kind of want to put this out there, is that if you want to participate in the drone advisory tasking groups, they're pretty much open to everybody. Now, I would say that you need to contact the people in charge of those particular groups to get involved, to see what you can do to what kind of expertise that you can lend to those discussions. But definitely have something to bring, reach out, be professional. And
it's a fair amount of time. There's no compensation. You're volunteering your time, and I'm burning easy 20 hours a week doing this. I'm leading a subgroup and participating in another, so it does burn up a fair amount of time. But it's researching, writing a narrative, writing presentations, as well as speaking. And so it's, like Lee Iacocca would say, lead follower, get out of the way. It's we're either leading a group, participating in a group, or helping. And so it's that type of activity, and it's it is obvious to me that when I have volunteered in areas that I did not know a lot about but had to go research, that was very well accepted. And so the other members of the DAC see that we as FPVFC jump in to areas that are not necessarily recreational, and they appreciate our attitude and what we're able to bring to the table.
Absolutely. And gaining knowledge is never a bad thing. Even if you don't know something about it, go out, do the research, learn about it, and then you can speak intelligently about it. Right. So, all right. So I'm going to, if anybody has anything else, Bruce, do you have anything for us this evening?
Can you hear this?
I can.
Microphone's playing up.
Yes, we can.
Sweet.
Mic is working.
Yes. For those who don't know, the FAA stole my video. It's interesting, isn't it? It's not so much that they used my video. It's like fair use is a reasonable thing, but a lot of people use my videos, and usually they come to me and say, Mr. Simpson, can we use your video? And I say, yeah, sure. Thanks for asking. And usually I say, just include a link or leave the watermark intact, and that's all I ask. But instead, the FAA, who obviously weren't taught manners as children, just bowl in, take it without asking, and then strip out the attributions and use it as their own. So it speaks to a culture of arrogance and entitlement within the FAA. If we're talking cultures, Theirs is not a good one. And I'm just doing a video now on the whole situation. One thing that I learned many years ago after making many mistakes is that there are 3 ways to fix your mistakes, or 3 steps. The first step is admit you made a mistake. I stuffed up. I goofed up. The second step is to apologize to anyone that's been disadvantaged. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I apologize for that. And then the third step is to try and come up with a remedy to fix the problem, like, oh, how can we put this right? But the FAA's response to being caught with their trousers around their ankles is, quick, hide the evidence. And they made the video private. I've had no communication from them whatsoever. And it's like they're just hoping that it'll all go away now, but it's not going to, because I'm just doing a follow-up video in which I tell them off for being, what would you call it, disingenuous, for being arrogant, for taking my stuff, because stealing is really taking someone's property without permission and without compensation. So whether it falls under fair use or not is irrelevant. It is still stealing. And you might say it's only 8 seconds of your video. You try putting up 5 seconds of a pop song on YouTube and see whether you'll get away with it. There's no such thing as fair use on YouTube. So, but it annoys me, it frustrates me they didn't just come to me and say, look, can we use your clip? And I said, yeah, great. And the reason I haven't struck it down, because people have said, you should put a copyright strike out, is no. I mean, we're reading from the same hymn book. I want the skies to be safe. This is a safety video that they created. And I think, it's a good thing. I'd like them to put it back up. I just like them to include the attribution, and all this would go away. But I think they're so arrogant that they're going to say, there's no way we're going to credit this guy with the clip in the video. We'd rather have it down forever. So whatever money they wasted making that video is completely lost, because it'll never see the light of day again, because they're just too arrogant to say, oh, good practice dictates that we provide attributions for any third-party content we use, especially without permission. It's concerning, because this is the same organization that has the future of the hobby in its hands. And if that's the way they're going to play the game, don't you know who we are? We're the FAA. We don't need permission to do a damn thing, and you should be groveling at our feet. It doesn't bode well for the future of the hobby. They treat us with contempt. They treat everything with contempt like this, and it worries me greatly. So what I'm going to do, to give you a heads up, I'm doing another video in which I point out it would be really nice if they followed the 3 stages of resolving a mistake. But even if they don't, I want to progress it forward, want to turn a negative into a positive. I would really love to work with the FAA to improve safety of unmanned vehicle operations in the US airspace. I'm an influencer, as they've seen. If you piss off the people who watch my channel, they don't take it very well. And if you want to recover the loss of respect and credibility you've just had, work with me to make sure that the people who fly model aircraft and drones in the national airspace are getting a fair deal, that their views are represented properly, and the rule set is a good match for the responsibilities and freedoms they expect from the airspace. So I'm going to lay a sort of an olive branch at their door and say, come work with me. I want to do a live stream. Let's talk to someone. I want to talk to someone in the FAA. Put your point of view. Tell us all why we should respect you. And tell us about this risk assessment you've created for producing good regulation. What do you think will happen?
Well, aside from that risk assessment, we know the answer on that one. We don't think it exists. But Bruce, I think that's excellent. I appreciate that you reaching out to the FAA to try to turn this into a positive. And I also agree with you. When you make a mistake, those are absolutely the right 3 steps. That's classic crisis management, and it works. And it's very unfortunate that that's not the approach that the FAA has taken.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if they used it, put it back up, just say, hey, we got this from XChat, check out his channel here, move on. It's very simple. So, all right. So I want to circle back. We're towards the end of our meeting here. I want to get your thoughts on creating a shirt for Mr. Benson, what we should put on said shirt. And please note that all proceeds from those shirts will be going directly to him. In fact, what we'll probably do is do an upfront donation even before we would do the shirts. And that way, the money's in his hands, and then, anything extra we could just send out to him as well. Any thoughts on that? Good idea? Bad idea? Anybody think one way or the other?
Great idea.
Okay, perfect. I like it. So, all right, we'll see if we can come up with a slogan. If anybody has any ideas, feel free to drop them in the chat or DM me. and we'll see what we can get done on that front. And then we'll put it up on our website and we'll announce it when it's ready. In the meantime, if nobody has any suggestions on it, we'll go ahead and create one. Two FAA guys who worked on the International SORA and Australian risk assessment may be more open-minded, but your mileage may vary.
Okay. Good.
It's
Good, thank you, Earl Lawrence and Rick Domingo.
Yeah, that was straight from my notes I took for you guys from the UAS thing. I transferred over to Dave from the symposium. These guys were doing a presentation on international SORA risk assessments, and also they went to Australia and did some risk assessment studies. FAA is a huge organization. They have many teams. So if you just reach out to the FAA, you're probably going to get the PR, the PIO or something. But these folks may be a bit more open-minded. They've worked internationally, and the Earl Lawrence guy comes from experimental flights, and he's a pretty friendly guy based on people's Q&As with him.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Let's see. In the general channel. I was not actually in the right channel, and I apologize about that, guys. Hey, I am horrible. Wow. All right.
We all make mistakes from time to time.
I was not in the right channel. So if you've been typing to me and I've been ignoring you, I am so sorry. I will never do that again. So sorry. All right. So on that note, I am going to go cry in the corner because I ignored all you people. And I'm going to give you back the rest of your evening. Thank you all for joining us. Huge crowd tonight. I was posting in the completely wrong channel. I apologize. So I will give you back the rest of your night. Thank you for joining. Again, if you have any suggestions, ideas, thoughts, or anything else, feel free to let us know. And we will see you all in 2 weeks. Have a great night.
Thank you all. Take care.